order for today's advisory board meeting. Can you do the roll call, Shannon?
Sure. Mike Brady?
Here.
Pam Brady?
Here.
Kelly Martin?
Here.
Tim Fulcher?
I'm here.
Kristen Franklin?
Here.
Don Shepard?
Here.
Casey Calusi, who is absent. Akshita Sahu?
I'm here.
Brian Gould?
Here.
And Dennis Trantham.
Here.
Okay, good. Are there any visitors? I guess not. Okay, having no visitors, then we won't have any public comment.
I did not receive any emails.
No emails. Okay. Okay, has everyone looked at the minutes of the last meeting? And are there any additions, subtractions, or corrections? Okay, then does everyone approve the minutes as presented? All in favor say aye.
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 Okay. So the minutes are approved. Okay, so old business. And under old business, we have the proposal for Redwood Park. Was the park group going to look at it and see and talk about what put a price tag on it or see what the feasibility was?
So I was forwarded the park, the presentation. I wasn't quite clear what the expectation on that was. I did come up with some costs for what was requested, and we can go through those here. So if we go back to the initial proposal, which was to add a parking lot with walking trails, about a little over a third of a mile walking trail, some benches, lighting, a restroom facility, a braille trail, trees. So that is kind of the starting point, and that's about $1.3 million to get that done. And that's just pathways, some lights, and the parking lot. Just for perspective, the pathway is probably about $300,000. It's currently about $140 per linear foot when you do an installation at that volume. The parking lot addition would be another $500,000 to $600,000. The current parking lot's about 100 foot by 45 feet. The proposed lot's about roughly 100 foot by 175 foot. So it's quite a bit larger. We have to do excavation, design work, and then under drains for that parking lot. The trees are about $35,000 to $40,000 between the evergreen plantings and the deciduous trees. And that's based off of what we're seeing from our current contractor, our current vendor for street trees. About another $120,000 in pathway lighting, not including $10,000 to $15,000 for DTE. To bring in a service, they may have to bring in a transformer, which could increase that cost. Benches are about another $20,000 between benches and different types of ADA seating. A restroom facility is about $125,000, and that would be a precast structure like we did at Beach Road or Milverton or the dog park. So single stall men, single stall women with a drinking fountain, all precast concrete. Any questions on the first phase? So the way I understood it is it was presented that possibly this could be done in multiple phases. So phase 2 would add sensory garden, raised bed gardens, a plant petting zoo, a butterfly garden, pickleball, toddler play area, a shade garden. So phase 2 is roughly another $800,000. So roughly about $100,000 of that's landscape. And just to put it in perspective, we are currently getting pricing for the Niles Barnard planting at the historic village to plant all that with native plants. And my cost for plants alone is about $8,000 just for that, just for around that house in natives. There's about 1,000 different plants in that planting, or 1,000 individual plants, maybe 15 different species. About $50,000 for the toddler area. It's pretty small. It's pretty not involved. So a play structure like we're putting in at JC or that's currently at JC, that's about $150,000 unit. So this will be about $50,000 for something for them to crawl on, play on. The hopscotch is minor. It's about another $5,000 that I can see in there. This proposal would add an additional $15,000 in trees. And the way the pathway delineates, it's really difficult to get an understanding of really how many linear feet of path it would be. However, it would be about another $75,000 in pathway. And then to add another set of pickleball courts on the west end of the property, it would be approximately another $500,000. Any questions on phase 2? I know I'm going through it pretty quick. All right. So phase 3 is the least expensive of all phases. That comes in at about $350,000. We figured it'd be about $20,000 for the sandbox. While sandbox sounds like it would be cheap, there's also, we have to excavate the soil below, we have to bring in sand, we have to retain the sand, and then we would need to put some kind of elements or features in there, diggers for the kids, stuff like that, to play with. Figured about $50,000 for the Labyrinth and Four Season Garden. Again, it's kind of difficult to understand how many linear feet of paving that would be, so that would be something that would come out with a design consultant or engineer, and we would kind of hone that in. The splash pad would be about $250,000, and I'm afraid that's low on the low end. There's no infrastructure for that at all, so we would either have to recycle that water, or we'd have to continuously pump new water. So it would take quite a bit of infrastructure underground to retain that water, treat that water, and then, pump that water back out. And then about $15,000 for a fountain. So those were the 3 phases, as I understood, that you were looking for information on.
Thank you so much for all of your work.
Yes.
Yes.
I am quite fearful that my estimates are low. We had a bid opening today for some ADA pathway work at Firefighters Park. Our goal was to bring a pathway from the parking lot through the center of the soccer fields and then branch off with pathways to each bleacher so that it was ADA accessible for visitors and guests. We had an opinion of costs of about $400,000 on that project, and it came in at like $650,000. So we are seeing just absolutely tremendous cost increase, and the only thing we can attribute to is COVID. between materials and contractors not being able to find enough labor help. It's getting pretty high.
Well, is that likely to come down once the pandemic is over, or that's a guess in any case?
It's a guess in any case. I read something today that talked about we're likely to see these high prices for the next 2 to 3 years. So it's a guess, right? It's anyone's guess at this point what's going to happen.
But it's clear, yeah, as you said, it's likely, at least for the next 2 or 3 years, those prices may still be, your estimates may be on the low side because of the problems.
Yeah. I had to go to council this week, or this last Tuesday, for a budget amendment for the first time that my budget was off on a project, and I took that a little personal, but it's just because it's COVID. Not everything is. I hate attributing things to COVID, but it's what it is.
Oh, right. No one can deny that COVID hasn't made a huge amount of changes in a lot of things. What is the next step with this? It's obviously there's only so much money in the budget.
Right. So if you guys wanted to vote to have the information taken above, we could do that to city management. I will, as Elaine said last month as well, this is not particularly in the Parks and Rec master plan right now. And with, the budget the way it is right now, I can't guarantee anybody that any of it would even be able to go through. But you have the ability to vote to have us take it to city management and have them review it.
Is there an advantage to having them review it, or is there an advantage to saying, why don't we table this until the COVID problem is at least everybody is vaccinated and things get more back to normal, and then see where we are at that point?
Brian,
I think if you look at Dennis and my budgets, you'll see that, if you looked at them closely, there isn't a lot of money. I mean, I am expending a lot more than I used to, as far as bringing, I'm not bringing in the revenues to cover the expenses like we used to. So, Dennis could speak more on his, but that's just my 2 cents.
I guess I have a little bit of a different perspective than most, because I have a foot in the world of leisure services in the parks world, but I also have a foot in the facilities world. And I can tell you that in the next, 3 to 5 years, we've got some significant building maintenance expenditures coming up in the capital budget for this next fiscal year. We've got, I think it's $2.9 million for a roof on the community center. That number could be off, but it's around $2 million for a roof of the community center, and then some HVAC replacements. So we are expending some major capital funds for maintaining facilities. So when we have projects like this, these projects have to compete against those other capital needs.
Question. I know that a lot hasn't been able to be done in light of COVID past couple of years because of budget reasons, but moving forward, and maybe we'll get to this when we talk about new business, but do we have like a huge master list of things that we know we need to work on in the future with different playgrounds or aquatic center or whatever it is for the next 5 years, and what those costs are? Or is that within the budget? And maybe because I glanced at it, I didn't go line by line.
Yep. So one of the things that I guess is at a disadvantage when you review the budget is you don't get to see all of our notes. So we come up with the capital side of the budget, an Excel spreadsheet, and I typically try to put really good notes in there. for Kurt Goldenseep. So when he goes to sit at the table for various budget meetings, he understands where we're at and why we're asking for whatever. So yeah, we do. We have future replacement of play structures in there. I do have a complete facility condition assessment analysis of all the buildings, the Aquatic Center being one of those. So we do have a plan that we're working off of.
Okay. I love Kristen's plan, and I love the idea of bringing something new to the city. But I also look at some of our parks, and it's, I'm looking at the playgrounds or the fields, and it needs a lot of work, and that's a lot of money. And I'd like to get our current parks up to a great standard before we jump on board to another one. Although I really do appreciate the project, and it looks great.
And that was one of the things that we got from the residents, from resident engagement in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan survey, is they really wanted us to maintain our existing parks before we went and added to them or constructed new parks, with the exception of Sylvan Glen Lake Park. That was the one park that we were going to try to focus on a little bit over this next 5 years, because that's what the master plan for recreation is, right? It's a 5-year master plan. Every 5 years we revisit it, and we'll poll the community again and see what it is that they desire, and then we will craft the next 5 years off of that. One of the reasons why the Sylvan Glen Park became an interest to everyone was we just put segment 2 of the Troy Trails through the park. So we are already hosting some weddings at that site. We're bringing in, people are bringing in porta potties, and it's become a really desirable park that's really undeveloped.
It's a really nice trail too that you've got through that park.
Mm-hmm.
Goes through to the subdivision in the back, as you know, and it's a nice walk.
Can I ask a question? What about getting grants for maybe the starting phase or something like that? How do those work?
So oftentimes grants have to be matching dollars. So like most of your state of Michigan grants, they'll match 50% or they'll match 75 or 25%. There's typically a matching component to that. So we do look for grant opportunities annually with different trees, different tree planting grants. So a lot of times we can partner with the Alliance of Rouge Communities to do planting in the Rouge Rivershed to help offset our tree planting costs. So we do look at that stuff.
So do you think that would be a possibility?
So we would still need the matching funds. So that $500,000 or $700,000 would still have to compete against an HVAC unit for the police department or really any capital need. So basically the way the capital works is everybody submits all of their capital requests, all their wants. And then over the course of a month or a month and a half, there will be several budget meetings where those things get pared down to really what's feasible with the available funds that are out there.
Okay.
So it literally, and I use these terms competes against, but it really literally, like your idea for the park would compete against replacing a fire truck, or would compete against adding 2 new school resource officers. Well, that's not a great example because that's capital versus operating. So scratch that one. So it would literally compete against any other capital item.
When is that decision? When do you put all that together?
So we start working on the budget in January. We have to have our budget submitted by the end of January. And then over the course of the month of February, it's reviewed by finance and the chief financial officer. And then they'll schedule meetings typically in March. And then this coming Monday is actually the budget study session where council will have the conversation about the budget. By charter, we have to have the budget passed and finalized in May. I think it's a second meeting in May.
So even if we did something now, we couldn't possibly put it in this year's budget. It would be in next year's budget.
Yep.
So could we send it up the line so it's prepared for next year?
Well, I think that would depend on what you guys want to do. You know, if the whole board wants us to go in that direction, we can. But like Dennis said, it'll be competing against all the stuff, the roads and everything else. So, but we can, you know, if that's what you want, we can't guarantee we'll go in that list because we will pass, you know, if you vote on it, we'll pass it on to city management, and that's their choice on whether that's something, you know, they even want us to consider putting in capital. They may tell us beforehand, no, we're not putting it in there. That's up to them.
Okay. And also, I know Kelly mentioned there's a lot of different parts that need improvements. Maybe this could somehow be spread across to make more of the Troy parks accessible. Well, that's what you're trying to do at Firefighters, right?
What do you mean?
You're trying to get it so that it's
Oh, yeah, yep,
accessible
the
for people
pathway,
to
yep.
get
Yep.
in and get to the areas.
Yes.
So, when I put this together, it was like this would be a dream, you know, but maybe some parts of it could happen. I'm not sure, or I guess it's up to my board members. What do they think?
And I guess the other thing that we need to take into consideration too is staffing. So to add another park with, if it got elevated all the way to phase 3 as designed, right? That would add a significant amount of workload to an already taxed park staff. So remember, we only have 4 parks employees for all of the parks in Troy, along with an arborist. We rely heavily on seasonal staff, and we are having a difficult time even recruiting seasonal staff last year, and it's not looking any better this year.
Is there money in the budget to hire another full-time person?
Great question. Is there money in the budget to hire another full-time person? So when we get to the operating side of budget, any potential increase that we make in parks would be a decrease somewhere else across the board. So,
Unless city council gave you extra money?
well, they would have to have extra funds to give us extra funds. So one of the things we deal with every year is the Headley rollback. So as our millages come up, they roll back every year. So that tends to be a bit of an issue as well. We ask for additional staff all the time. We're not granted the additional staff. This year, from what I know, this year no one received any extra staffing, mainly because we don't know what the impact of COVID is going to be for this year, maybe even for the next couple of years.
Just to echo what Dennis said, like in our department, you know, my position isn't going to be filled, and we've lost 3 part-timers. So really we're down to the 4 full-time people that we have here in the department to do all the programming and everything. And basically, you know, it's going to be that way until they can get an idea of what the hit of COVID is going to be on this department. So.
Yeah, it's going to be a year before we actually know where your departments kind of come out of COVID. Is that a valid statement?
I think a year is soft. I think it's probably gonna be
It's
2 years,
optimistic.
maybe 3. Yeah.
Well,
And a lot of it, you know, to say a year today, we're still not even, like, the state's not even really opened up. Right? We're still restricted. There's just so many unknowns still. We're
Right.
seeing numbers spike again, and we're pausing and we're stepping back again. So it's like it's this race that we keep getting ready to run, and then we get a rain delay.
Yes, it does seem that way, doesn't it? I'm thinking, I think this is a great plan and I really would like to see it, but I can see that there's lots of problems. And sending it up to the city council right now might make it look like we aren't really cognizant of the fact that the city has lots of budgeting problems. And I don't want to make it look like that because, you know, sometime in the future, maybe they would be more receptive to it. Right now, I could see how they would say, why are they bringing us this in the middle of this problematic area or period? Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I don't know that I would say, I don't know I use the term budget problems. Sometimes
Well,
it
not
has a
problem,
negative
but
connotation to it, but yeah,
yeah,
a
challenges.
lot of competition for the funds.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe if Kristen wants to, maybe you could share some of the cost breakdowns you shared with us earlier with her, and maybe she could adjust some of the phases around a little bit and see if, you know, there's some much cheaper stuff we could do right now, like whatever, plant some of the trees or something like that just to start, and then, you know, have these other phases ready down the road.
So typically when you head into a project with a phased approach, you'll have the goal and it's going to be phased out as you go. So maybe phase 1 could be trees, phase 2 could be, the problem is once you get past trees, you get into, you know, $500,000 items or, you know, $250,000 items.
Right.
That are still pretty big contenders. You know, we wouldn't look at putting a restroom in the facility in that park until there was a true need for a restroom. That park is designed as a neighborhood park, and that's just what it's designed as. So it's designed to meet the needs or the recreational opportunities for the people who are in that immediate neighborhood.
And they can go home and use their own restrooms.
So that's typically what you see with what's considered a neighborhood park. And that's not something that's unique to Troy. That's something that you see throughout communities that have many parks that are small or large.
Kristen,
I was
what's your
thinking
thought?
the restrooms because of the pickleball courts. Because those are a big draw to people, a lot of seniors or people in that age group. And Trixie, I'm sorry, my dog's coughing. And the people in that age group that I know of tend to need to use the restroom pretty frequently.
Yeah, so we have a porta potty put out there that's serviced. We went with a new vendor last year, and we got actually really good compliments from many of the seniors at Redwood with how the service was and the cleanliness of it. And not only there, but we use the same company for the farmers market. So we have changed vendors, and just earlier or late last week, I had a conversation with one of the pickleball go-tos, I guess, and he was really appreciative that we have the same company again. So we do try to meet that need as cost effective as we can.
Oh, okay. I'm Kristen, what do you think? I'm kind of think that maybe we ought to table this until we get a little better idea of what COVID is going to do to the demands.
I was thinking well, there was the option that Chuck mentioned of like getting started with the tree planting. Trees need time to grow, so if that part could be done, it would be an improvement that would be growing until we get to another part of it. I think that's a good idea. Or I don't know what we need other than what Dennis has given us just like how much preparation time before we would present it? So if we were to table it, then when do we want to bring it back and get it rolling so that it's in on that January time? Do you know what I mean?
Right. We'd want to look at this either in the summer or in the fall, so that we have some kind of a like you say, if the tree planting would be phase one, then we could ask for that in the next January's budget. That we would have, at least at that point, a little better idea that the COVID is pretty much done, hopefully. And then and say, like you say, I'm assuming just planting the tree, and planting the trees around that park would be nice, because it's got an industrial kind of background, and the trees would cut that out.
That would be a huge improvement. Just the border of the trees would change the whole look of that park, I think, yes. But it would also be nice for people to be able to walk around the park, because it's just grass. So if you're not able to walk on grass,
So
Again, I would caution how we phase this. If we're gonna plant trees, we should probably have a true plan of what the end result of the park will be, which would require some design and engineering. We would need to test the soil to even make sure that soil was okay, especially since it's surrounded by industrial. People haven't always been the most environmentally conscious. They're better now, but 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it hasn't always been that way.
Good point. It might be poison soil. It's like you say, it is industrial, and it
Contaminated.
yeah, they weren't as careful then.
I mean, I'm not saying it's contaminated.
No,
I'm not
I
saying,
know. I'm not. You're not saying it, but you are bringing up the point that it's not unrealistic that there are places where we do have contamination, and if there are and we don't know it, then better to test.
well, if you notice also in the sensory garden, there's the smell, the hearing, the feeling, the seeing. There's no tasting.
Yep.
Sometimes in sensory gardens they have like edible flowers and things like that, but I know that the parks spray for the mosquitoes and stuff like that, so there's no food, no area to grow food there.
Yeah, those gardens are typically more your botanical gardens or your true garden destinations. They're not in your municipal park.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Kristen, you want to make another more phases to this, starting with a phase to plant the trees, and maybe that would sell better to city council that's trying to spread their money as judiciously as possible.
Have we reached a consensus or made a motion on what we want to come out of this committee or this board? It sounds like we maybe need to take a vote on what direction is going to come from this board.
Yes, to someone, Kristen, you started this. Do you want to make a motion as to what our next step should be?
Well, I'm not sure. Should I abstain on this or can I vote?
Oh, no, you can vote. That's just because of your idea. I don't think it's only if you've got a personal interest in this that you can't vote.
Well, I'll probably be going there.
Well, yeah, but
I think a personal interest has to be more of a financial interest or a personal gain.
Oh,
not just use of the park.
No. Okay. Well, then I guess what is the first step that we would need to take, Dennis, if we wanted to do the first, really break it down into phases and have the first phase just be the trees? What would we need to do for the first step of that?
I mean, really the first step of this is we have to get a conceptual design together with from an architect to an engineer to do the park. Just like we had to do a conceptual design before we could do the town center parking lot renovation to a park. So we've got to go down that road first. And that's, I don't know, $75,000 to get started.
And
Kristen,
we would
I,
have-
I,
Go ahead, Tim.
so I was just going to say, Kristen, you've done some great work on this park, and it's it looks like a fantastic park in its concept. But as others have pointed out, as Dennis has done a nice job, I think, of presenting the budget right now in the reality of the budget, I don't see how we can recommend a new project or money for a new project to go when we have existing structures and existing parks that are in desperate need of repair and and money is tight, and that's probably one of the biggest understatements of the meeting. So I at this point, I don't feel like I can in good conscience support anything going forward. For me, that's not a no permanently. I'm not saying it's not a good project. I think there's only so much money right now. And it would be my recommendation, or at least I feel that we need to not recommend moving forward with that at this time and support the other existing parks and structures that are in need of repair. So that's my take on it right now.
Okay, so I'll assume that's a motion from Tim to table this, or is table the right terminology?
Sure. If you want a motion for me, my motion would be that the entire project is tabled and until a later date. I don't have a later date. We're talking getting through the pandemic and the repercussions of the pandemic. So that could be multiple years. So I don't have a time frame on that. But my recommendation is not to parse the project down into smaller phases, but to table it all together and focus on the needs at hand that we currently have.
All right, good. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, if not, then
Does it need to be seconded?
oh yes, we need to second that.
I'll second that. I have the same concerns as Tim. I love the park idea, and I think it'd bring a lot to our community, but just with budgetary concerns and with looking at all of our parks and what's needed right now in our parks, I also feel like we can't move ahead with it.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Okay, so that's unanimous. Anyone opposed? No. Okay, so the motion passes. Everyone agrees it would be a great park, but otherwise there's still problems. Okay, good. So is there any other old business? If not, then let's move to the new business, which is the budget.
Mike, can I ask one question? Can we put a time on that where we revisit, not saying, yes, let's do it at this time, but let's say the last meeting in the fall, can we take a look and say, okay, another year? And then look at it and say, okay, another year. So it just doesn't go away.
Sure, that's what, so,
That's a good idea.
so Shannon can put that on put it in the notes for the September meeting. That's the second to last meeting, right? That we can put it on for old business, put the Redwood Park question.
Yeah, we have a meeting in September and a meeting in November. Those are
Which
our
one
next
would
two
you like,
meetings.
Kristen?
Well, obviously not this September because that's what we've all just decided it's not appropriate given the budget restraints at the time. So maybe we could schedule it to be on the next September and then the one after that, or kind of just push it out as we go so that it just doesn't disappear, I guess.
Okay.
What I'm asking, is that okay with everyone?
That's
Yeah.
5 months. Do you want 5 months or
Well,
do you want
no.
7 months and put it off until November?
Well, I guess we could take a look in November and see if anything's miraculously all wonderful.
right.
And if it's raining money, you know.
Okay, we'll bring it up in November as old business and just at least address it to see where we are.
Okay.
And whether we, as you said, in case somebody comes in and says, I have an extra $2 million and I want to build a park.
I got it for you.
There you go. We already have a plan. Okay, good. Let's move to new business then. And so we have the budget for the recreation.
Yeah, so we sent out all the budget sheets to everybody. For my department, basically, it is the recreation areas, the aquatic center, nature center, the 2 golf courses, and the museum and historical village. So those are the budgets that you have in front of you. So I'm willing to answer any questions anyone has.
Yeah, my only comment is that you did a job with a really difficult. You didn't spend very much money because nobody came because everything was closed, but you still have to keep all the buildings up, and there were a lot of retirements I noticed in some areas. So that it's been a really difficult years. No particular question though. Everything looks, in order. Like you say, it was difficult. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, good. What about the budget for the parks?
So again, you guys were sent out my operating budget and capital budgets for the next fiscal year. For the most part, our budgets were pretty much status quo for funding. And I would also be willing to answer any questions that you all have.
One question, I really love the trails, and you do a good job of keeping them up, shoveling the snow off of it and the leaves. But as you pointed out, you only have 4 park employees, and every time we add to the trails, it adds a little more work. Any comments on that?
So we are really trying to get creative and purchase equipment that makes our 4 people more efficient. For the capital this year, I've requested 2 Kubota RTVs with plows, snow blowers, and brooms. That way we can service those trails better. We really got a lot of compliments this year for the way we maintain the trails and the parks this winter, which is something that we have never really done that at that capacity before. Typically trails or parks or pathways within the parks were always an afterthought. They were after everything else was done. This year, the park staff was removed from the snowplow rotation with the streets department, and our parks, I don't want to say became just as important as streets, but for the most part, they became just as important as streets. So when streets were called in to plow snow, we called our staff in as well to take care of the park. So that's something that I'm really happy that our staff had the opportunity to do this year.
Well, I think you have done an excellent job, and I think that was more important this year than some other years because everyone being not able to go to meetings and being more around their house. I saw a lot more people using those trails and parks than in past years, sometimes because they needed to.
Yeah, so we're working on segment 3 right now, getting that designed. We're hoping to let that to bid here pretty soon. The segment 3 will go through JC Park. We just had a community engagement or public engagement with that. And there should be some more information to come in the coming weeks at the City Council on that.
Yeah, it looks like a good plan. Any other comments? Well,
Any
okay,
questions?
good. Okay, any members want to make any comments? Okay, if not, the staff reports.
Mike, I think you guys do need to vote on approving the budgets.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. Of course we do. Does someone want to make a motion to approve both the budget, the recreation budget and the parks budget?
I move.
You move to accept the budget, the recreation budget and the park budget?
I move to accept both of those, yes.
Second? Okay, Kristen seconds it. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, so that passes unanimously. Member comment, thank you for keeping me on track here.
Mhm.
Any member comments? Oh, okay, so the staff reports for recreation report.
Yeah, so just go over a couple things. I don't know if everyone has seen, but we are having a COVID vaccination here at the community center next week. So the gym area, the fitness area will be closed on Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday, they'll be here to set up. They're using the gym to do it. So if you haven't gotten your vaccine and you want to, there still is an opportunity to sign up. It's not technically through us. So if you tried to sign up today, there was a big crash to the SIT database. That's not us. That's the group that's handling it. I guess they had 1,100 calls come in at once. So the whole system crashed. So
Hey, Brian,
just to give you a little, yeah.
I'm sorry, just curious which vaccine is being offered?
It was supposed to be Johnson & Johnson, but they changed it to Pfizer, so they'll be getting the first dose in April and the second dose in May.
Okay, thanks.
Then wanted to just give you a little update on the Aquatic Center. So the Aquatic Center we are planning on opening the Aquatic Center. We don't know how much it's going to be open due to limitations right now. At this point, water parks are not allowed to open. So at this point, if the orders do not change, the only thing that would be able to open at the Aquatic Center would be the main pool. The slides and the kiddie area would have to remain closed. So, and right now capacity, I believe, is at 25%, I believe, for pools. So that would be about around 200 to 300 people at the Aquatic Center. So right now, what we're planning on doing is offering 2-hour time blocks where people will make a reservation. People that bought a season pass will have the first option, and then dailies can open up after that for any spots that are available. But we're looking at doing pretty much 2-hour blocks during the week, and then 3 2-hour blocks on the weekends. So that's kind of our plan at the moment. Things will change, if the orders change, we'll definitely change and switch things to make it better. But this is where we're at right now, because we are doing the summer book, and so we had to come out with some kind of plan to put in that book. So that's the plan. We also are planning our summer programming. We're planning on offering a number of day camps and safety town camps and things like that. And we're going to more focus them outside this year, try and keep them outside as much as possible, and also keeping them in cluster groups so that they're with the same kids most of the week. So we're doing what we can, kind of like the schools, to make it as safe as we can and still offer something for the parents. So that's kind of all I have for recreation.
Well, you have some in the plan is some work on the Aquatic Center. Is that done or will be done?
So Dennis is still working on some of the stuff that needs to be done, but it is all in process. The marsh sighting of the pool was done in the fall. The only thing that is still up in the air that you never know is what's going to happen when you start it up. So, you know, hopefully the pumps and everything will start up after, you know, a long, even though they were running last fall, it's still, you know, hasn't been running as much as usual. So,
Right.
but
right.
I know
Motors.
yeah.
Hey, Brian, I thought that I thought I read that there weren't selling any of the season passes for the Aquatic Center.
They're going to be selling May 3rd, I believe.
Okay.
It'll be in the summer book that will come out around the last week of April, early May.
And when you talk about the reservation system, is there a way to make like the first 2 blocks or 1 block open to Troy residents only, since it's so limited, or would that be not beneficial?
Well, I don't know yet. It's kind of up in the air because it has come to council. People have brought it up at council that they want it to be all residents. Right now, we're going under the impression that no, it will not just be residents at this time. That could change, but as of right now, it's not set that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, good.
A slight change in topic. Is there a recycling event that is happening soon? Or is it
we had one that happened a couple weeks ago for Sakura did it at the Aquatic Center parking lot. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, wasn't it, Dennis?
It was last weekend.
Okay. I don't know of any other ones coming anytime soon from at least our department.
Okay.
I went to the one last weekend and it was so well organized and maintained, and it was quick and it was efficient. It was appreciated by this city.
I will pass that on to Ashley Levin, who's overseeing the refuse and recycling, and Scott Carruthers, the street and drains manager, who had staff on site to do traffic control.
Okay, good. Okay, that's the recreation report. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, so what about the parks report?
So I will touch on a couple of Brian's things as well. The farmers market this year will actually be hosted at the recreation center in the north parking lot, since the library will be hopefully a 7-day operation when they open. So that's going to be a change. We looked at maybe doing it at the park there on Town Center Drive, but it was too difficult to get the vendors in and out. So Brian graciously allowed Community Affairs, Cindy Stewart, to use that north parking lot. So that'll be the farmers market this year. And then as far as the TFAT goes, we are still working on having the boiler replaced. That should be done mid next week. We went from a 1 million BTU water heater boiler to a tankless hot water heater, so it'll be more energy efficient with on-demand water. We just did that at the community center a couple weeks ago as well. So we do look for opportunities where we can be more environmentally friendly. So then we get to the parks. This year is no different than any other year, other than we are still 50% short at least of seasonal staff. So if you know seasonal staff that are looking for employment that are over 18, we would gladly hire them. Park restrooms are opening, so we had the water meters installed earlier this week, and just as typical Michigan, it looks like we may get some snow next week, so our restroom facilities are not heated, so we will hope that the buildings stay warm enough. But the good news is that spring's here and restrooms are open. We're working on getting athletic fields ready for soccer leagues and baseball leagues. Just spring has sprung. We had a pre-bid meeting yesterday for the new park at Town Center Drive, where the old skate park was. So that'll be it's been the works for the last several years. There'll be a delineated walking path with some post lights and a place for the stage to go, and that will be home to the farmers market in the future. We are doing some turf pavers, so it's basically a plastic geo grid that goes down below grade, and we can put soil over it and seed it in, and it becomes really heavy enough or strong enough to support vehicle traffic without rutting. I have some experience working with that at the University of Kentucky. We put it around some of our dorms where we bring fire trucks in, and it would hold the fire truck. So look forward to that project being completed towards the end of September, hopefully. I spoke about ADA pathways at Firefighters Park. We got to kind of hash that out and see where that's going to live. That was going to be funded with community development block grant money. Trail phase 3 of the trails. We're working on that. So we are working on a lot of different things. We have a lot going on. We had retirement in parks of a pretty veteran employee that was our irrigation specialist. So we have a new person that transferred in from the streets department, bringing him online. But all exciting times in parks.
Yeah, the new park next to the skate park, that looked like a really good design, and it should be great for the farmers market and anything else that people want. You know, it looks very versatile.
Yeah, our
So
goal
that's
is to Center Park there with the pedestrian bridge over the drain, and kind of get as close to walkable as we can. That seems to be a thing that we keep hearing from residents, is they want walkable, they want kind of a downtown type setting, someplace they can hold festivals, and you know, that park is really going to lend itself to that, to that idea.
Does the park have a name?
It does not have a name. Nope.
Should have a
Okay,
contest with a name.
Yeah, we should have a name. Maybe once it's done, it'll lend itself to a name.
Well, fun fact, the park at Town Center Livernois doesn't have a name either.
Oh,
People refer to it as
Okay.
Community Center Park or Town Center Park, but it doesn't really have an official name.
ah,
But our dog park does.
It does.
oh, yes. Well, that's
Hey, Dennis,
All right.
I was just gonna make one little comment. Like, if it's gonna freeze and you don't have heat in those restrooms, I know it's not environmentally right, but if you leave the faucet dripping, the pipe won't burst. You probably
Yeah.
already know that.
Yeah, so one of the things that we are banking on is the summer or the daytime sun over the next few days to kind of warm the building up, and it can sustain some sub-freezing temperature for an evening or so before it really starts to impact the restrooms, the water that's inside. Because the water meter, everything is pretty interior to the buildings. So
Just a
No,
thought.
it's
I've had to do that before, so I do it just a
Yeah.
thought.
just par for the course for Michigan, right?
yeah, right. Yeah, I thought spring was here, but
That's first spring.
yeah, first spring.
We're still waiting
Point.
for, we have second winter coming next week.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay, sounds good. Okay, any other comments from anyone? Any questions? If not, this is a great meeting. Thank you for all your inputs, and then we'll adjourn the meeting.
And the next meeting is when?
She'll send it out. The next meeting is, I don't know, when is it? The next meeting is in the middle of summer, isn't it?
No,
September
September.
September 16th.
Okay, great. Okay, September. Okay, so everyone have a good
Summer?
summer.
Thank you to everybody on Parks and Rec for doing a great job keeping our parks up.
Yes.
Thank
I
you.
second that.
Stay
Yeah.
tuned and look for the
Thank
new
you.
play structure at JC.
Awesome. Thanks.
Stay
Brian,
safe.
congrats on the new role.
Yes.
Thank you, Tim.